thank you for coming today. You're going to hear a great talk. Avi Lipkin is Israeli. He's served in the defense forces. He's been in Israeli intelligence. He's worked for the Likud party. He's done many things in his life. He's got an MA at Israel's Conservative Jewish Seminary. He's a spokesman for the Israeli Defense Force today in the reserves. He's a senior editor and translator for the Israeli Government Press Office, and he's done a lot of things, and he's an amazing person. He speaks all over the world on this. He also has one of the highest prices on him because of what he says about what's going on. And I would like to give him a big welcome. If you would please give him a big welcome. East Texas. Thank you.
Shalom to everyone.
Hello.
This is going to be a big challenge because 50 minutes, 50 minutes is too short for the information that I have to give. Usually Baptist churches give me 20 minutes and Pentecostals give me an hour and a half, and I usually go for 3 hours, so 50 minutes is going to be a challenge. But what I wanted to do was to emphasize a very important point. And that is that America is the greatest country on the face of the earth because it is a Christian country. This is the first point. I'm a Jew from Israel. I'm from America originally, now from Israel. And I'm telling you that America has to be a Christian country, and America is sliding downhill away from Christianity, and this is a very bad portending premonition of what could happen to this country. And I think I mentioned it the last time I was here, that it was Alexis de Tocqueville, the French author who visited America 200 years ago, and wrote a book called Democracy in America. And it was a long, boring book about a travelogue around America. But he said that America's democracy emanates from its Christianity. Unlike the European countries, where the suppression of democracy was from the church there at that time. And it was actually President Eisenhower who summarized the book in 2 sentences. Sentence number 1, America will be the greatest country on earth because the American people are a good people and their pulpits are on fire for the Lord. Conversely, second sentence, America will lose its preeminence in the world when America's pulpits will no longer be on fire for the Lord. And this is what concerns me very much. As a Jew who speaks in Christian churches, and people say, well, what's going to happen to America? Will there be judgment on America? And I say that I think America will be spanked. You had Pearl Harbor, that was a spanking. You had 9/11, that was a spanking. But the spankings cannot destroy America. What can destroy America, God forbid, is falling away from God. America was created in the name of God, just as Israel, state of Israel, Jewish state of Israel, was created in the name of the same God. America and Israel are the only countries in the world that are founded and based on the God of Israel. The reason I'm saying this is because there is out there an agenda called Islam. And Islam, that's why we have the police here keeping an eye, guardian angels keeping an eye for us. Islam will not tolerate democracy. My wife Rachel monitors their broadcasts, and the Saudis said after President George W. Bush said we're going to bring democracy to Iraq in 2003, the Saudis said over our dead bodies. There is no democracy in Islam. And Islam will use democracy to come to power and then suppress Christianity, Judaism, and every other system. The only time you can have freedom and democracy is under a Christian, democratic system like America. I wanted to share something, and you'll forgive me. It's a little bit of an off-color joke. Actually, it's 2 jokes, but they're for church audiences, so don't be too concerned. But I don't know if I shared this last time I was here. Did I tell the joke about what's the difference between neurotic people and psychotic people? Does anyone remember the joke? So good that I should tell it. And I want you to know, I earned a 3-year jail sentence in Switzerland for telling this joke. And I'm very afraid the day will come that I will earn a 3-year jail sentence in America for telling this joke if there is a suppression of freedom of expression in this country. So here's the joke. What's the difference between neurotic people and psychotic people? Neurotic people dream about castles in the air. Psychotic people live in castles in the air. And psychiatrists collect the rent. Now, Adolf Hitler was psychotic for many, many reasons. I will give you only 2 reasons this time. He thought he could conquer the earth, and he thought he could kill all the Jews. Now, can anyone conquer the earth? Only the Lord has dominion over the earth. Anyone who thinks he can conquer the earth is stark, raving, mad lunatic. So Hitler thought he could conquer the earth. The Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Mongols, Napoleon, Hitler, Stalin, all thought they could conquer the earth. They were crazy. Only the Lord has dominion over the earth. That's psychosis number 1 of Adolf Hitler. Psychosis number 2 of Adolf Hitler, he thought he could kill all the Jews. Now, can you kill all the Jews? Now, there are 2 types of human beings. There are believers and there are non-believers. So believers believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They believe in the Bible. And of course, Jeremiah is one of the books of the Bible. Jeremiah 31:35 says, there will be no more Jews on the face of the earth when the moon, the sun, and the stars stop shining. You know what that means? You better pray for the Jews. Because when they go, the world goes. Okay. But 2/3 of the human race, the Hindus, the Buddhists, and the Muslims, were good people. And I love all people. I love the Muslims. But the Hindus, the Buddhists, and the Muslims do not believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They believe in another system. But they all know that the Jews have been scattered to the 4 corners of the earth. If you can't conquer the 4 corners of the earth, psychosis number 1, you cannot kill the Jews, can't reach them, psychosis number 2. That's why there will always be Jews on the face of the earth. That's the psychosis of Nazism. And America went to World War II partially because of that. What does Islam believe? Islam is coming to America. There are 6 million Jews in America today. There are 30 million Muslims. And you're going to get another 30 to 50 million Muslims very soon. Okay, so if their system is a psychosis, and if their system is based on the destruction of Christianity, this should concern all of you. And I know all the people in this room here are leaders. What does Islam believe? Psychosis number 1, it's going to conquer the earth. Psychosis number 2, it's going to kill all the Jews. It's going to finish the job that Hitler started. So Islam is just as crazy and psychotic as Nazism. But Islam is even more psychotic than Nazism because Hitler had no plan to kill all the Christians the Muslims do. So they're going to kill 2 billion Christians. 2 billion Christians. That's psychosis number 3. Psychosis number 4, they're going to kill 1 billion Hindus from India. Psychosis number 5, they're going to kill 2 billion Buddhists, including the communist Chinese. Now, I recommend to the Muslims not to mess with the communist Chinese. They know what to do. They don't have the ACLU. Psychosis number 6 is that 1/6 of the human race, the Muslims, can kill 5/6 of the human race and get away with it. Psychosis number 7, after 1/6 kills 5/6, what does the 1/6 do to each other? They kill each other until there are no more human beings left on the earth. Psychosis number 8, which is the greatest of all of them, if you die for Allah, you get 72 virgins. Now, I can't manage with 1 wife. I don't know how they marry 4. 72 virgins would be hell. So this leads to the second joke, and then I'm going to get serious. Osama bin Laden dies for Allah. Goes to heaven. He's waiting for 72 virgins. Who shows up? George Washington. George Washington, 6 foot tall, beats him up. Then Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death, beats him up. And then President Adams shows up and beats him up. And a whole line forms of 70 tall, strapping 6-footers to beat up Osama bin Laden. He said, wait a second. I'm going to Allah's office. I'm going to complain. So he goes to Allah's office and complains. He says, you promised me 72 virgins. So Allah says, no, silly, you weren't listening. I said 72 Virginians. The point I'm saying is, and I said this in Switzerland in 23 cities, the Muslims wanted to put up minarets in Switzerland. And the Christian EDU party brought me in to speak in 23 Swiss cities. I was on Swiss national TV. If anyone here knows German, you can look up Avi Lipkin, Schweiz. Schweiz is in Switzerland. And you have the whole report there. They wanted to put up minarets. Do you know what minarets are? There are these tall towers, these tall spires next to the actual building of the mosque. And they have loudspeakers at the top of these spires. And they have them in Dearborn, Michigan. They have them in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. They have them in different places in the United States. And they come to you, to the American people, and say, it's part of our religion, part of our freedom of religion. And they were saying this to the Swiss in 2009. So the Swiss people, who are very conservative people, said, wait a second. We're going to have a national vote. We're going to have a national referendum, which took place November the 29th, 2009. Let the people decide. Let the people decide. So I was brought in to explain what is Allah. And I said Allah is a God who hates the Jews, wants them dead on Saturday, hates the Christians, wants them dead on Sunday, hates the Hindus, hates the Buddhists, hates the blacks in Africa, and the Muslims slaughter each other in the name of Allah. Could that God be the same as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Or is it maybe the opposite? What is the opposite? What is the opposite of God? Satan. So I said, Allah is Satan. Do you know what the Muslims call their God? Al-Makr. You know Mack trucks, M-A-C-K? Remember Mack trucks, M-A-C-K-E-R. Al-Makr means Allah is Al-Makr. He's the greatest of all the liars and deceivers. Allah is the greatest of all the liars and deceivers. Now, if you're a Christian, what does that tell you? Who is this Allah if he's the greatest of liars and deceivers? He's Satan. So we have a God with a small g who hates the Jews and hates the Christians and hates every human being and hates the Muslims too. I love the Muslims. Do you think I want to see the Muslims killing each other? But that's the insanity of their system. So in Switzerland, I explained that if they put up minarets, and at 4:30 in the morning, if you're living within 3, 4, 5 mile radius of that minaret, you're going to hear 4:30 in the morning, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, which is what they say when they cut your head off. And even Fox News, which is the only station I can really watch, mistranslates it. They say Allah Akbar, Allah is God, Akbar is great. God is great. Wonderful. Isn't God great? But that's not what it means. Allahu Akbar means Allah is greater. If Allah is greater, he's greater than another God. Who's the other God? Our God. The God of the Jews and the Christians. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So if you're a Christian, who said he was greater than God before his fall from heaven? Satan, because he said he was greater than God. What are the Muslims proclaiming from their minarets? That Allah is greater. So I said to the Swiss people, if you allow them to have their minarets, they're going to be claiming the triumph of Allah, Satan, over the God of the Jews and the Christians. So praise God, November the 29th, 2009, there was a national vote, a national referendum. And I'm proud to tell you that 57.5% of the Swiss people voted down the minarets. And there are no minarets in Switzerland today. The problem here in America is American people are good people, but they're a little naive. There's a saying, it takes a thief to know a thief. Now, do you understand why I'm in the churches? And the synagogues won't have me because the synagogues say, well, you know, this Avi, he's against Muslims, and, you know, we believe in the, you know, commonality of all the nations and cultural diversity. And we were allies with the Muslims in Spain in 1492. I say, things change. And today the Muslims are the enemy, and the Christians, who are the enemies of the Jews, that changed. Now the Christians are the allies of the Jews. And either we hang together or we hang separately. You know, I'm working to form a political party in Israel. The political party, I've been talking about it now for 10 years. I've been working, I've been paying my lawyer, I've been getting signatures. The party will be registered, God willing, November the 1st. November the 2nd, I'm here in the States for fundraising. A 45-day window to raise money for the operations of such a political party, for the campaign. December 15th, I will not be able to raise money outside of Israel again. So I'll be back to announce the creation of the Bible Bloc Party. The Bible Bloc Party is a Judeo-Christian party. My candidates will be Jew, Christian, Jew, Christian, Jew, Christian. In Israel, it's not like here that you have individual candidates per district. In Israel, the whole country is one constituency. Israel's about 6 million voters, so you have to divide that up by 120. It's about 50,000, a little less than 50,000 votes per member of Knesset. The Christians in Israel today are over 400,000. That means 8 members of Knesset. The Jews married to the Christians would bring in another 6 members of Knesset. And I believe very soon, as we see happening in France and in England, that Muslim terrorists are killing Jews in the streets of Paris and other cities in France, and they're killing Jews in England. And many Jews today are picking up and leaving Europe and moving to Israel. The Muslims who have come to the U.S., there are 30 million, according to my calculations, according to my understanding. This is being hidden from you by the media. Sometimes they say 2 million, 3 million, 7 million. You have 9 million Shiite Iranians that came here in 79 after the fall of the Shah. You have 7 million Arab Christians, members, Arab Sunni Muslims, who are members of the Arab Immigrant Association. And the Farrakhan Nation of Islam group has 4 million. That's 20 million right there. We haven't counted the Somalis, the Bosnians, the Chechens, the Turks, the Indonesians. There are all kinds of Muslims from all over the world, and they're coming here. Your government is bringing them here. I don't know if I told you. I think I told you last time I was here. How many people heard me last time I was here? Okay, less than half. Let me tell you a story from Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. This is like 10, 15 years ago. This wasn't President Obama. This was the presidents before. And I'm returning my car on the second floor there at DFW, and a young gentleman, handsome gentleman, very nice guy, and I'm in a rush to catch my plane. I give him the keys. I run off with my suitcases. He says, "America's the greatest country on earth." He said, "Yeah." I stopped. I put the suitcases down. That was a challenge. He said, "Yeah, I know America's the greatest country on earth. Why do you think America's the greatest country on earth?" He said, "Well, I'm an Indonesian Muslim. And I used to work for a delivery company like UPS, FedEx in Indonesia. And one day I was in the American Embassy in Jakarta delivering packages. And an American embassy official looks at me and points his finger at me and says, "Hey, you want to go to America? There's a plane leaving tomorrow. Let's fill it up." He said, "I don't have a passport. I don't have a visa. I don't have any." "Doesn't matter. We'll process you in the United States. Bring your parents, bring your siblings, bring your cousins and uncles and aunts and your friends. Let's fill up the plane. It's paid for already." Isn't America the greatest country on earth? There are jet charter companies working for different agencies of the U.S. government flying in Muslims every day. You hear about the 12 million illegal Mexicans and Latinos and all that everybody keeps talking about illegals. That's nothing. That's just a diversion from what's really happening. Let me tell you, I was in Vancouver, British Columbia, in Canada. And I spoke in Vancouver, and I spoke in a little town called Abbotsford. Does anyone know Abbotsford in Canada? 2 hands. So 3 hands. So my host and I were driving back, and he points, "You see that house over there?" I said, "Yes." He said, "That's the United States. No fence, no border fence, no nothing." And then he said to me, "See that house over there?" I said, "Yeah." "That's on the Canadian side. It's only 100 yards between them." I said, "Wow. If I were a terrorist, I'd buy the 2 houses and build a tunnel. Dig a tunnel underneath the 2 houses." He says, "That's exactly what they did." You talk about Mexico, there's no fence with Canada at all. And he said to me, "You cross that border from one house to the other house, it's your responsibility to go and report to the Border Patrol." Yeah, right. Terrorists are going to go report to the Border Patrol. I got another lady in Maine, and there's a little river. It's really a stream. You don't even wade across it. It's like ankle deep. That's the border with Canada. And also there, you cross over from Canada, and you got, go into Canada. You got to go and report to the local law enforcement because the border is just too long. No fence, no defense. I don't have to tell you the kind of tunnels you have under the border with Mexico, but there are also all kinds of tunnels coming in from Canada and vice versa. I shared a message in Edmonton, Canada in 1999 in the summer. And there's a long story, I think I mentioned it here, about did everyone ever hear the story about the Egyptian woman doctor? There's one lady. From here or from another meeting? Another meeting. So, just to give you an idea, I speak in churches, not usually in synagogues. But it was the Sabbath, and the rabbi invited me for the Sabbath, so I went. So he said, get up and say a few words. The Christians give him 10 hours, we'll give him 10 minutes. I got up, I didn't start speaking. Some liberals, quote-unquote liberals, shouted me down. Liberals are liberal with you if you are liberal like they. But if you are not liberal like they are, they will not be very liberal with you, and they will shut you down because they're socialist totalitarians. Who are the true liberals? Christians, Bible believers, and Orthodox Jews who are not afraid to listen to the truth. So I got shouted down. And a Christian woman attending the Orthodox Jewish synagogue on Shabbat, because Jesus went to synagogue on Shabbat. I don't know if you know that. He didn't go to church. There was no church. And he was not a Baptist either. Anyway, you know the difference between Northern Baptists and Southern Baptists? Northern Baptists go to hell. Anyway, that's a Texas joke. Anyway, I told that joke in the Northern Baptist Church in Edmonton. They didn't like it, but it's okay. It's all part of the fun. So this Christian woman was attending the Orthodox synagogue because Jesus was an Orthodox Jew, and he read from the law, and he read from the prophets, and delivered a sermon. That's exactly the way we do it 2,000 years later. So a Christian woman gets up and says, if you're going to let Avi speak, you all know me. I don't have any agenda against anyone. I'm just going to tell you what happened to me. So she is a social worker for the government of Canada. And she's a caseworker for an Egyptian Muslim woman doctor who is in hiding in a safe house with 24/7 protection from the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police. What's her story? She was like a Mother Teresa, volunteering all her time for the poor people of Cairo, Egypt. And she was in her 40s. Unlike Mother Teresa, who was a Catholic nun and had the church behind her, this woman had no one behind her. So she decided, midlife crisis, I'm going to go to Canada, work 20 years, 25 years, retire, honorably, live out a life not in poverty and in sickness here in Cairo. So she gets a knock on her door. It's 3 jihadis, 3 holy men or warriors, holy warriors of Islam, who knew her from the mosque, because she went every day to the mosque to pray. And they said to her, congratulations. She says, why are you saying congratulations? Because we know you're going to Canada. She says, well, how did you know? The Canadians approved this just yesterday. Oh, we know everything about you. We have our fanatic Muslims everywhere in the Egyptian government. And we also have congratulations in store for us. You're going to work for us. She says, what does that mean? Oh, you're going to be our agent in Canada. You're going to be our spy. What does that mean? Well, when you open up a clinic in Canada, in Edmonton, all the Jews and all the Christians and all the Muslims of Edmonton come to your clinic. And they have to fill out forms. Their names, their addresses, their telephone numbers, place of employment, their address, telephone number, and you're going to give it all to us. Okay? And when a major war breaks out in the Middle East, we will know where the Jews are, and we will kill them. The Muslims of Edmonton will kill the Jews of Edmonton. Now, we have 80% intermarriage in American Canada between Jewish and Christian people. So every 100 Jews in America are going to marry 80 Christian spouses. We're going to kill the Christian spouses too. And the children of the intermarriage, we're going to kill them too, even if they go to church. Just like the Nazis. And it's going to happen in Toronto and in Vancouver. It's going to happen in the US. It's going to happen in Brazil, in Mexico, Argentina. Wherever there are Jewish communities, the Muslims live just around the Jewish communities in order to catalog them. The Jews and Christians who love Israel are being actively cataloged by the Muslims. When the day comes for the final accounting, they're going to kill every Jew that they can find. This will set into motion what I believe will be a massive immigration of Jews from America and Canada and Europe and Latin America to Israel. I'm forming a political party that's going to represent Judeo-Christian values in Israel. This will be the party of 10 million immigrants to a country that is only 6 million immigrants. So you have to think about what's going to happen in Israel very soon. We're going to have all these people coming in. And this lady, this Muslim woman doctor says, listen guys, you know, I'm a pious Muslim woman, I go to the mosque every morning, but I don't understand politics, I'm not interested in politics, and I'm not into killing anyone, even the Jews. So she was a pious Muslim, but she wasn't a killer. Oh, you're not going to work for us? She said, no, I'm not going to work for you. So standing next to her was another Muslim woman in her 40s, helping her in the clinic. And these 3 jihadis grabbed her, pulled out a knife, and slit her throat. Well, what's happening today with ISIS? It's nothing new, it's nothing unusual. And they pointed their finger at the doctor, said, if you don't work for us, this is what we're going to do to you. The next day she had asylum in the Canadian Embassy in Cairo, Egypt. Then the Royal Canadian Air Force flew in a private jet to pick her up and bring her to Edmonton. And this Christian woman attending the Orthodox Jewish synagogue is the caseworker for this Muslim woman doctor. So God had a plan to shut me down in the synagogue that day so that I and everyone else would hear the story about this Muslim woman doctor. And it was in all the newspapers of the province of Alberta, Canada. The story never left the province. It was never in British Columbia or Saskatchewan or across the border in Montana. Never made it into CNN or Fox News. But it's in my books. It's in my teachings. This is 1999. When a war breaks out in the Middle East, there's going to be a major cataclysm which is going to affect every Jew and every Christian who is either married to Jews or smells of the Jews or is associated with the Jews. Pastors that love Israel, Messianic groups will be slaughtered. So one thing you've got to think about as Christians, how is that going to affect the greatest country on earth, the United States of America? Are you guys going to be happy with the idea of the Jews fleeing this country? Europe is already crying. The Jews are leaving. When the Jews leave, usually the country goes down. Now, what's happening with ISIS, and this is going to be different than what I shared last time, because ISIS wasn't here when I was here last time. ISIS has now basically erased the borders of Syria and Iraq. Everybody speaks about the sacred borders that the United Nations created for Israel June 5th, 1967, and that Israel must go back to the borders of June the 5th, 67. Well, that's a complete horror, complete fantasy. Because the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff visited Israel in 68 and said Israel must never go back to the borders of 68. That these are borders that, you know, are not defendable. 67, excuse me. These are borders that Israel cannot defend. Israel will be destroyed. They're slaughtering the Christians. There's a Holocaust today in the Middle East. Where's the U.S. government? Why does the U.S. government ever say anything about Christians being slaughtered in the Middle East? Christians, or Yazidis, or Kurds, or Druze, or even fellow Muslims. ISIS is now approaching a mountain in the south of Syria called Mountain of the Druze. How many people have heard of the Druze? The Druze are an ethnic group, a religion. They're not Muslims anymore. They serve faithfully in the Israeli army, those who live in Israel. They serve faithfully in the armies of Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. The problem is Syria doesn't exist anymore. Bashar al-Assad cannot defend them anymore. So the Druze are on their own. I'm going to tell you something a little crazy. You know, we have a piece of land that we took, we liberated, conquered, whatever you want to call it, from the Syrians in 1967. It's called the Golan Heights. We gave half of it back in 1974 because of Henry Kissinger pressuring us. But there are 4 major Druze towns there. And the Golan Druze, they still consider themselves Syrian, at least until now. The Israeli government offered them citizenship. No, we're loyal to Bashar al-Assad, Hafiz al-Assad before him. Well, guess what? Bashar al-Assad is about to leave Damascus. He's about to go up to Latakia, which is where the Alawites live, because Bashar al-Assad cannot defend Damascus anymore. He can't defend the Druze in the south of Syria anymore. And the Druze are now surrounded by ISIS. 700,000 Druze are going to be slaughtered by ISIS. So the Israeli Druze who are serving the Israeli army have now convinced the Golan Druze who are loyal to Syria, forget about Syria. The only country that will defend you is Israel. So all the Golan Druze are now becoming Israeli citizens. Can you imagine Israel handing over the Golan now? There's nobody to hand it over to. So the Druze living in Syria, south of Syria, in Mount Druze, and if you want to know the exact pronunciation in Arabic, Jebel Druze, Mountain of the Druze. And the ISIS are closing in from all directions. And the Druze of the south of Syria, listen to this, they're demanding that Israel annex that land. That Israel send its army from the Golan Heights over and annex it, and basically Israel's borders will not shrink. Israel's borders are going to expand. The Druze are our brethren. They want to be part of Israel, because otherwise they'll be killed. That's a pretty good excuse to want to be part of Israel. I'm forming a Judeo-Christian party because the Arab Christians who hated the Jews for 2,000 years all of a sudden now realize that the Jews are not the enemy, the Muslims are the enemy. And so the Christians of Israel, the Arab Christians, they all want to be part of the Israeli army. They want to join my party. Things are changing. It took 2,000 years. Because you know that these Arab Christians, they're either Catholic or they're Greek Orthodox. And the mainline ideology of the Catholic Church and the Greek Church is against Israel. I wish the Vatican would change. I think the Vatican will change, but at this stage, this present Pope still continues the same line that they're allies with the Muslims. They recognize the Palestinian state. Crazy. The Palestinian state has only one purpose, and that's to destroy Israel. They don't want a state. 82% of the Muslims support ISIS. 92% of the Saudis support ISIS. You know what that means? ISIS is going to move south, take Jordan. It's going to take Saudi. Now, for those of you, I don't know if last time I was here a year ago if you taped it, but I spoke very much about the dependence of the U.S. on Saudi oil and Saudi cash, and that basically American leadership, the Democrats and Republicans, are all part of this club, this country club which belongs to Saudi Arabia. But what happens when Saudi Arabia doesn't exist anymore? And it's ISIS. And ISIS is going to come and blow up the oil wells. Because the way to destroy Christianity is to destroy the economy of the Christians. And even if America, praise God, is finding all this fracking oil, and the Canadians have fracking oil, even if you guys are totally independent with petroleum sources, but Russia, oh no, not Russia, China, India, Japan, and Europe, they're still without oil. And if a war breaks out with Iran, one of the reasons, I'm not attacking or defending President Obama right now, but one of the reasons the U.S. government is so desperate to make an agreement with Iran is to ensure that the Straits of Hormuz remain open so that the oil ships can go through. The world is chokes to death without that oil. But ISIS says it's going to blow up all the oil wells in Saudi Arabia. It's going to blow up the Black Stone, the Kaaba, because it was a pagan symbol when Muhammad co-opted it into Islam. When they blow up the Black Stone, they're going to destroy their own religion. I talk about this. My newest book just came out, Islamic Rivalry, and praise God, it just came off the press a month ago, and nothing is outdated yet. One of my fears was that some war would break out or something would change, and people say, oh, Avi's book is outdated. The book is so cutting edge of what's about to happen in the Middle East, so I recommend you get it, in addition to my other 6 books. How many people heard of the one world government? Now, I'm going to start with something almost funny, but it's not funny. It's kind of sad. How many people here think the one world government wants to depopulate the human race? Okay, 1 hand. Okay, 2 hands, maybe 3. What is the God of the one world government? Money, mammon. Either you serve the Lord or you serve mammon. So the one world government serves mammon. Now, how much are you going to make more money with 6 billion people, or are you going to make more money with 600 million people? So I think that the one world government does not want to destroy the human race. The one world government perhaps wants to enslave the human race, put it to work, and make more and more money, because their God is money. Now, what is the effect of ISIS blowing up the oil wells? The effect of the blowing up the oil wells is that the one world government economy collapses. How many people heard of Pastor David Wilkerson? The ghetto's going up in fire. That's exactly what's going to happen. Billions of people will die from hunger, sickness, and chaos when the oil stops to flow. You can't produce plastic without oil. Everything crashes. And so the one world government wants to maintain a good flow of oil from Saudi, from the Middle East, regardless of what the US and Canada may or may not have. Are you with me? And so I predict we're going to see a meltdown of Saudi Arabia. How many people heard of the Houthis? I see hands now. I spoke about this in November. I didn't say Hooters. I said Houthis. Houthis are a small minority in Yemen. Yemen is a country all the way at the bottom of the Arabian Peninsula. And they're backed by Iran. From the last century, Yemen was controlled by the Sunnis. Sunnis are the majority of the Muslims, they're 85%. But the Iranians trained and armed the Houthis, and the Houthis overthrew the government of Saleh. Saleh was the president, overthrew him, part of the Arab Spring. The Houthis today have invaded Saudi Arabia. How many people heard this week that the Houthis are now carrying out battles on Saudi soil? And they claim territory of Saudi Arabia, say it's part of Yemen. That's Iran. Iran is already active. Iran is behind the Iraqis who are Shiites. 60% of Iraq is Shiite. They are basically annexed to Iran now. Hezbollah in Lebanon, they're Shiites. Bashar al-Assad, Shiite. But Bashar al-Assad is losing. And Bashar al-Assad, when he loses, Hezbollah loses. Iran is going to lose. Okay. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about President Obama. But no, certain churches have 501c, they say no politics. So I know this is not specifically a church meeting, but this is very important to understand, and it's part of the message. My wife, Rachel, is an intelligence gatherer for the Israeli government. I have a very smart wife. The thing that bothers me the most about her is that she has ESP. She's one of those women, like when she looks at me, I don't even think about lying. When I tell the truth, I turn colors. Being married to Rachel is like being married to Mexico. You're guilty until proven innocent. And she hasn't killed me in 45 years. And one of the things I always say that I'm such an expert on Islamic terrorism because I'm married to it. Because she monitors their broadcasts every day for the last 30 years. You need to pray for her because it's a very oppressive job that she has. So she hears them 30 years ago when she first started working, and she thought that they were delusional. The Saudis were saying 30 years ago, even if it takes us 150 years, we're going to make America a Muslim country. How can you make America a Muslim country? America is the greatest Christian country on earth. Praise God. Now she listens to the Saudis, the same stations, and they said, we said 30 years ago that it was going to take 150 years to make America a Muslim country. We were wrong. It's only going to take us 30 years to make America a Muslim country. That's the plan. If you're patriotic Americans and you're Christians, that should bother you. That's where it's going. 2006, my wife picked up a broadcast before anybody knew who Barack Hussein Obama was. And said, the Saudis said, we're going to have a Muslim in the White House in 2008. My wife said, these people are crazy, delusional. How can you have a Muslim president in the greatest Christian country on earth? I was in a free evangelical church in Rockford, Illinois, 200 people, group like this. And at the end, during the questions and answers, a gentleman gets up, retired mailman, mail delivery man, postman, and he says, I used to deliver mail in Chicago to the house of Professor Bill Ayers. How many people know Bill Ayers? And there was this young gentleman there, black gentleman, young, handsome guy. And so he's going to the house of Bill Ayers. This is a young black guy there. He says, who are you? He says, I will be president of the United States. And Obama was just a young guy, college. I'm going to be president of the United States. And Louis Farrakhan of the Nation of Islam said, before he was elected, he was selected. It's not President Obama that's the problem. It's the agenda that decided to select him and make him president. And President Obama is not an idiot. Forgive me for saying it, he's a brilliant man. He's doing exactly what he's told to do. 2009, he visited Cairo in January, right after his inauguration. Just a sidebar. Does anyone remember how high Wall Street was when he was inaugurated? Wall Street had fallen just before his inauguration, the last days of President George W. Bush, from 12,000 to 6,000. How many people remember the crash of 2008? When Obama was inaugurated, it came down, it was already down at 6,000. Within 2-3 months, it bounced back to 12,000. Did the American economy have such a rebound in 2 months, 3 months? Or maybe there's something else at play? Okay. So 2010, my wife picks up a broadcast. This is January the 19th. And she's watching Egyptian TV, talk show. And the Egyptian foreign minister is debating with members of the Muslim Brotherhood who had not yet come to power. Mubarak was still president of Egypt. And they were attacking Mubarak. They were attacking the Egyptian foreign minister. If you're interested to hear the exact interview, look at the YouTube Saudi plant. P-L-A-N-T, a YouTube Saudi plant by Pastor Carl Gallups under the name of P.P. Simmons, but it's about me and my wife. Almost 5 million hits. I didn't make it. I had nothing to do with it, but a very good, very, very authentic YouTube about what my wife picked up. And so the Egyptian foreign minister says to the Muslim Brotherhood people on Egyptian TV, open broadcast, they were saying, you know, that the Egyptian government should have broken the peace agreement with Israel. They should have attacked Israel, destroyed Israel, and if they didn't, they were heretics, infidels, collaborators with the enemy. That's what the Muslim Brotherhood believes. That's what ISIS believes. That's what Al-Qaeda believes. So Abu Ghaid, who was the foreign minister at the time, says, have you guys finished? I want to tell you something. I had a one-on-one meeting with President Obama a year ago here in Cairo, January 2009. And he swore to me that he's a Muslim, that his father from Kenya was a Muslim. Now, if your father is a Muslim, what are you? Is there any debate? Have I offended anyone? It's a simple matter of fact. If your father's a Muslim, you're a Muslim. My stepfather from Indonesia was a Muslim, so a Torah. And actually, we don't know if his name is, you know, Mubarak Hussein Obama or Barry Soetoro, because he was registered in school, an Islamic school in Indonesia, as Barry Soetoro. So his stepfather was a Muslim. What does that make him? He went to school till age 11 as a Muslim. What does that make him? He even said that the call to prayer, which I shared before, Allahu Akbar, at 4:30 in the morning, that's the azan, it's called in Arabic. It's the greatest sound you ever heard. How many people remember the Catholic Francis Xavier? Francis Xavier was the guy who said, give me a child until 10 and I'll make him a man. Obama was made a Muslim man in the mosque in Indonesia by age 11. And he said, I've got Obamacare and economic problems to deal with, but I swear, when I overcome the economic problems, I will destroy Israel. The President of the United States is sworn to destroy Israel. And he is not a legacy of these freed slaves of the Civil War, like Michelle. President Obama, his mother's white, his father comes from a slaver tribe in Kenya. The tribe of Obama took black slaves and sold them to the whites. Slavery has never been abolished in Africa. They never heard of Abraham Lincoln. This is the kind of stuff my wife picks up. My wife picks up broadcasts where they say Obama has 3 tasks. And I know I'm going to have to wrap up pretty soon. This is what you need to think about. Task number 1, these are the orders from the King of Saudi Arabia. First is to destroy the Iranian government, the Iranian leadership. Not destroy Iran, but regime change. Okay. Now you're probably all asking yourselves, well, what about this agreement, this nuke agreement? How can the U.S. government be surrendering and surrendering and surrendering on every point? And every time the U.S. surrenders on this point or that point, the Iranians come up with a new thing because they're laughing their heads off at the Americans. And you know what I think? I think President Obama is giving the Iranians enough rope to hang themselves. Because the bottom line is to overthrow that regime. It's just Obama doesn't want to get involved in another imbroglio, another foreign adventure like George W. did. And I'm not criticizing George W. George W. did the right thing in Afghanistan, he did the right thing in Iraq. And President Obama succeeded in snatching the victory out of snatching the defeat out of the jaws of victory. Because America won the war in Iraq. And by pulling out all the US troops, the whole thing collapsed. So my wife hears the 3 commands. First, to destroy the Iranian regime. Replace it, bring in a regime under the United Nations auspices, which will be pro-Saudi. This is the directions of the Saudis. How many people have heard there are now, today, demonstrations in the streets of Iran? All the nurses are striking. Because the cost of living is horrible. There's tremendous unemployment today in Iran. Use of drugs is higher than ever before. The suicide rate of women is higher than before, ever. Life is not good in Iran for the Iranian people. The Kurds in the north of Iran are a minority, and they're becoming restive because their neighbors next door, the Iraqi Kurds, are forming a Kurdistan, an independent Kurdish state. Iran is going to be facing an upheaval very soon. Second point, destroy Israel. Third is to make America a Muslim country. Destroy Christian America, replace it with a Muslim America. How do you do that? By massive immigration. And it's all being covered up by the media. They're coming in illegally from Mexico and Canada, and they're being flown in by charter flights. They're being brought in as students with student visas. Many of them never study, they just disappear somewhere inside of the United States. We're talking about floodgates open. You had 100,000 Muslims in this country in 1970. All of a sudden, you have 30 million. Let me tell you something. I don't want to shock you guys too much. I believe in the end, it's going to be a happy end. I believe in the end, America will have a revival. Islam will be terminated. And there will be a happy end to this. Muslims will only have a life when Islam is terminated. Kind of like, if you remember Germany in 45. Germans are great people. They're democratic people today. The Japanese are great people. They're democratic people thanks to the US. The only way the Germans in 45 and the Japanese in 45 can have a life is to ban Tojo fascism in Japan, to ban Nazism. And I'm saying very clearly, Islam must be banned. Japan, how many people know that Islam is banned in Japan? You know why they said it's banned? They said, we had kamikazes once, that's enough. Kamikaze is not an Arab word. Kamikaze is Japanese. Islam is insanity. We don't need it here. There's a country in Africa, Angola. How many people have heard of Angola? Angola was a Portuguese Catholic colony. Then the communists took over. Remember, Fidel Castro was sending his troops in there to fight, and U.S. Special Forces and South Africans were going from the south and fighting. Angola just passed a law banning Islam. There is no Islam in Angola. You know, China. China has a very big area of the west, northwest. It's called Xinjiang province, and they got Turks there, Uyghurs. And now they're having the month of Ramadan, and there's a lot of problems there now because the Muslims are saying any Muslim who eats will be killed. So the Chinese said any Muslim who doesn't eat will be killed. The Chinese said to the Muslims, you just want to mess around with us, we're going to answer you disproportionately. And we're going to ban Islam. Chinese are ready to ban Islam. Doesn't make sense for the Chinese. Doesn't make sense for the Japanese. Doesn't make sense for Angola. Doesn't make sense for many people. And I predict it's going to happen in Europe. It's going to happen here too. You know, I have to tell you one little thing getting back to Agenda 21. When I'm not in Israel and I'm here, I'm based very much in the Texas, Oklahoma area. And I come up all the time on 35 towards Oklahoma City, or I take, a 75 heading towards Springfield, Missouri. So I go up through there. And I drive across the Red River. You all know the Red River. And I've actually spoken to a group in the Kayanishi Mountains. This is some of the most spectacular, beautiful country in the world. You cross the Red River, and until you reach McAllister, there's nothing. For half an hour, you don't see one human being. Got beautiful lakes, sweet water. You've got trees. You've got rolling hills. It's paradise. There's plenty of room there for 10, 20 million Muslims. It's called Agenda 21. You ever hear of the Ozarks? Isn't that beautiful? Plenty of room for Muslims there. Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, Louisiana, plenty of room. And America needs 50 to 100 million Muslims because Europe is bringing in all these Turks. 270 million. They're going to be 620 million. And America with NAFTA will only be 500 million. With Canada, Mexico. Why are they not building a wall along the Mexican border? Because the United States, Mexico, and Canada are going to become one country. That's the NAFTA agreement. But you're still short 100 million. So you need your Muslims. Why is the Muslim Brotherhood destroying everything? Why is America supporting it? In order to cause a massive shift of population to the Middle East here to America. People don't like to leave their country unless things get really bad. Things are getting really, really bad in the Islamic countries. And God is depopulating Lebanon, Syria, Iraq through the use of the Islamic groups to destroy everything. That's all they're good for. Because Islam is an insanity. Islam is not a religion, it's a criminal psychosis. That's why I told the joke at the very beginning. And these people are coming here. And if you let them continue with this insanity, it's going to destroy America. Do you understand why I'm here today? Yes, sir. There has to be a revival. There has to be either a stop put to this, or when the Muslims come, but you have to have a Christian government do this, the Muslims have to become Christians. You don't bring in people who are sworn to kill the Jews on Saturday and the Christians on Sunday. I'm sorry, that's what it says in the Quran, chapter 551. Don't take Jews or Christians for your friends. The Hadith says kill every Jew. Kill every Christian. Jesus Christ is coming back as a Muslim. How many people know that? Ask any Muslim. You got Muslims here in town? I bet you got a lot of Muslims here in town. And some of these liberal Jews or whatever, some liberal churches, they have this ecumenical relations with people who want to kill them. And when you have ecumenical relations with people who want to kill you, they know where to find you. I can't understand how people can be so naive and so stupid sometimes. And I heard some of these people didn't want to come here to hear me today because I was talking against the Muslims. I'm not talking against the Muslims. I'm talking in favor of staying alive. And I believe America will always come out on top. Because America is a foolish country, but it's foolish in the Lord. And you know, the wisdom of man is much less than the foolishness of the Lord. As long as you are foolish in the Lord, you'll always be world power number one. Thank you very much, and God bless all of you. By the way, I wanted to share one little thing. I brought this up specifically. This is a tour guide to the Temple Mount. Now, you all know the Temple Mount is in Jerusalem, on Mount Moriah, where Abraham was supposed to sacrifice Isaac. That's holy for every Jew and every Christian. That's what's in the Bible. The Muslims have another belief that Abraham was supposed to sacrifice Ishmael in Mecca, at the Black Stone, the Kaaba. So that's another ballgame. It has nothing to do with Jews and Christians. Jerusalem is not holy for the Muslims, but they want it anyway so that the Jews and Christians will not have it because Islam supplants Judeo-Christianity, replaces Judeo-Christianity. So this tour guide was written in 1924. I have it here. 1968, I moved to Israel, and I bought this in a shop. It's also a travelogue for the Temple Mount. It was printed in Jordan in 1962. Both of these talk about the Temple of Solomon on the Temple Mount and the Temple of Herod on the Temple Mount, and that Jesus was on the Temple Mount in the temple. So after 64, Yasser Arafat forms the PLO and revises the history, says, guess what, there was never a temple. Do you know today that every Muslim will tell you there was never a temple on the Temple Mount? So I had a meeting with a senior Catholic official in Israel. He is actually the Vatican ambassador to Israel, Archbishop Pietro Sambi. I'm forming a political party in Israel. Half the Christians are Catholics and half the Christians are Greek Orthodox. We don't got no wasps in Israel yet. We will soon, I think. But, so anyways, I meet with him to review my plans for a Judeo-Christian party to run for the Knesset, to give representation to the Christians, to defend our Christians, because the Muslims are killing them. So the Vatican ambassador tells me in confidence, I shouldn't talk about it, but he died so I can talk about it. He met with the Vatican, with the Muslim Waqf, the Muslim leadership. And they said to me, you know there was never a temple. So what's he going to do? He's going to start polemics with these people? So he said, the Vatican loves the Arabs, and the Vatican loves... We know all that stuff. Was there a temple, or was there not a temple on the Temple Mount? And you're an archbishop, you're a man of God, you're an historian. What do you say? He couldn't get out of it. He said, well, I have to tell you, as a Christian, I have to tell you, he said, if there was never a temple on the Temple Mount, where did Jesus overturn the money changers' tables? At the temple. Where did he have his bar mitzvah? Remember, Jesus was confirmed at age 12 at the temple in Jerusalem. Remember, left behind? Ayers left it. Okay. The Bible's a very funny book. It's very funny and it's very authentic. So, where did Jesus go on Hanukkah? How many people heard of the holiday of Hanukkah? Feast of Dedication. John 10, verse 22. Jesus visited the temple on Hanukkah. Where was the Apostle Paul? At the temple. Where were the disciples? At the temple. So the Catholic Archbishop says, the Vatican ambassador says there was no temple, then the whole New Testament is false, together with the Old Testament. Any attack on Judaism is an attack on Christianity and vice versa. Amen. And like I said before in the joke I said at the very beginning, what is psychosis? When people are living in castles in the air. The Muslims are living in castles in the air. They are disconnected from reality. So let me ask you, will there be a Palestinian state? No, there never will be a Palestinian state, because they're crazy. And you're bringing these people here. You're bringing them here because the American economy is tied to the Saudi oil and Saudi cash. And if you think the American dollar is going to collapse, and if you think the American economy is going to collapse, it's not going to collapse because the Saudis own you. You're Saudi property. They're going to keep the dollar up. They're going to keep the American economy up. It's only when you go against Islam that you're going to pay. But it's like when you stop taking drugs. You're addicted to drugs. You need the drugs. When you break away from the drugs, you're going to have a withdrawal. But you're going to have a withdrawal. It's called Christian revival. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, questions?
If you have any questions, please write them down on the note cards, and we'll have people come around and collect them for you.
Let's just do one question because of time.
Okay, first question is there one presidential candidate that seems to stand out for Israel more than others?
I can't answer that because I see a lot of really good people on the Republican side. I don't see anyone on the Democrat side. Ted Cruz, Rubio are good. Trump is very good. I don't want to talk bad about certain candidates, but you always have to follow the money trail. And you know who I'm talking about. And I'm afraid if that candidate with the money trail to the Saudis through his family runs against Hillary, who's also having a money trail to the Saudis, this can be a problem. Huh? Okay, anyway, I don't want to mention names. I will only mention those are the three guys that I really like. You know, all politicians at some stage, they've got to compromise. But the question of Israel is a question of faith. It has to be a Christian whose faith tells him that Israel and the United States are one. And whatever happens to Israel happens to the U.S. and vice versa. So I'm a person who believes in the unity of the Jews and the Christians in Israel, the Jews and the Christians in America, and Jews and the Christians worldwide, because guess what? Messiah is going to show up in Jerusalem first or second time, not only for the Jehovah's Witnesses. He's not showing up only for the Southern Baptists. He's not showing up only for the Jews. He's showing up for everyone. And I believe that ISIS will destroy Saudi Arabia. They will blow up the Black Stone. Saudi Arabia will self-destruct. Israel will take Mecca, Medina, and Mount Sinai. How many people know Mount Sinai is really in Saudi Arabia? It's not in Egypt. I'm out of the DVDs. Look up Jim and Penny Caldwell, Split Rock Research. Remember Moses hit the rock and it split. These people were there. They found the real Mount Sinai. And I believe the one world government is going to say to Israel, now that Islam is banned, now you build your temple in Jerusalem. Then the leader of the one world government shows up. And then you know what happens after that. So we're very close. Messiah's coming or return is very close.
Thank you. Anything to wrap up with?
No, I wrap up.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Give him a hand. Thank you for coming, sir. Thank you.
And God saved America and saved Israel and saved the human race from the plans of Satan to kill everybody.
Thank you, sir. I was guessing.